Hey guys, I'm Cameron,
I'm Cindy.
and we're here to talk about homeschooling. So I'm a teacher. I've been a certified teacher for almost a decade, and Cindy has homeschooled 5 girls. And so we're here just to talk about the people starting homeschooling. It's becoming very very popular, and there's definitely some very good reasons to homeschool. I mean, for as we're people of faith, and one of the big reasons is that we want to make sure that they have a good faith-based education integrated. And so there are many reasons, but in this video, we want to talk about some reasons that you might want to rethink whether or not homeschooling is the right choice for your family. And so, Cindy, what's one of the biggest reasons you say you should rethink whether or not homeschooling is the right decision for you?
Well, I think, first of all, if you want to homeschool because you are angry with a school system or a principal or a teacher, you might want to rethink that. I'm not talking about major philosophical differences where you're always just going to be at odds. But if you feel like the school has slighted your child or they're just against you, you know, it's not a good thing to teach our children that we get offended and we take our marbles and go home.
And I gotta tell you, if you think you're hurting the school by pulling your child who they've labeled as disruptive out,
Yeah.
you're not. I'm sorry, I was just saying, because I've worked in many schools, and the parent will pull the child out, and we've been having problems with the child. I mean, I've literally seen them just like cheering because of it. So it is not, you're not spiting the teacher by pulling out your child. So I do not recommend anger. Well, really, you shouldn't make any decisions because you're angry, but
That's right.
especially when it comes to your child. Because if you're not ready for the rigors of homeschooling, and it is rigorous if you want to do a good job, that anger will quickly turn into frustration when you realize just how hard it is to teach your child at homeschool, especially if you don't have a teaching background.
That's right. I think in life it's generally a good principle that you don't make a major move to get away from something, that you should be moving towards something.
Amen.
And if you want to homeschool your child because you think it's the very best opportunity for them to nurture them and to give them the tools they need to succeed in life, you're moving towards something. Mm-hmm. If you just want to get away from a teacher, a principal, a school system, you might want to rethink that decision.
So reason number 2 to rethink homeschooling: you're trying to save money. It doesn't work that way, Cindy.
No. There are other options that are more expensive, and I'm not saying homeschooling is the most expensive, but I feel you should never go into homeschooling in order to save money. If you decide to homeschool your children, you should commit yourself to provide the very best. That means in curriculum, in learning objects, manipulatives, and things that they use in the classroom, maybe in extra teachers to come in to teach languages or fine arts or music, maybe things that you don't have the skill to teach, but you want your child to have that experience. You want to broaden their horizons, not narrow them. And so you need to be committed to that, and those things cost money. And I feel like you should be prepared to spend what you need to in order to provide the very best that you can for your child.
And I gotta tell you, so in my career, I've tutored homeschool kids, and I know for me, the company I was working for, I was getting paid roughly $20 an hour at the time, and to teach Spanish to children. And of course, the parents are paying more than that because the company has their expenses. So just for that hour, that's $20 an hour, 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. I mean, so you could talk about that, and then the materials. Some of these curriculums are not cheap.
Right.
And one thing I'm seeing that's a little bit disturbing to me as a teacher, I'm seeing people searching for free homeschool materials, and I'm just gonna pull this free digital off the internet. I'm gonna pull that free digital off the internet. But you really, really are going to want to have a curriculum that has everything mapped out if you don't have the expertise to do it yourself. Because there's a certain curriculum that your child needs to follow because we don't want your child to fall behind. And so I feel one of the best ways for someone that does not have a teaching background is to get a good curriculum. And curriculums are not cheap.
No, they're not. And the more integrated they are, the more cohesive the program is, the more extra things they use, like reading books, flashcards, manipulatives, supplies. All of those things add to the expense, but they also add to the learning environment for your child.
And even a microscope. And another thing is, especially if you're talking about like junior high school and up, that's when your cost, because you're talking, specimens for dissections, microscopes. Okay, there's all kinds of different expenses. I mean, a good microscope is easily, $2,000, $3,000 for one microscope. So please, I'm not saying that if you don't have a lot of disposable income, you shouldn't do it. You can, but just understand that is going to be an obstacle that very much can be overcome, but it is going to be an additional obstacle to overcome. Number 3, I would really rethink homeschooling just because your child has social problems. Homeschooling probably could exacerbate social problems, not necessarily help them in a lot of cases. Now, I'm not talking about if your child maybe has a disability and maybe he's getting made fun of because of that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the child that has a real issue with sharing and getting along with others, and you just want to, like what Cindy was saying, pack up your marbles and go. That's not necessarily the best thing we want to teach our child. They need to learn that things are not always going to go their way, and that they do need to understand that people are not going to agree with them no matter how much talking you do.
I agree that, if your child, I'm not talking about the case where your child is suffering at the hands of bullies or, being put down all the time or things like that. If your child is the one with the anger issues, your child is the one that's continually in trouble because they are the bully, our
Be
children,
honest about that.
Yeah, and our children need to learn to get along. They need to learn how to express themselves, how to stand up for themselves and set boundaries, but also how to treat others with respect and basic civility. And if we're always removing them from the situations where they get angry and then feel like they act out, we're not really giving them any tools to learn to work through those things.
What's going to happen when they're out in the workplace and their coworkers are doing things that they don't like? Well, too bad. I mean, they're going to have to, you're not going to be able to function. Even if you own the business, you can't just, that doesn't mean that you get your own way. I mean, I own a business, and so does, Cindy's husband is director of a nonprofit. I can assure you, we don't always get our way. So if you don't know how to get along with people, and by the way, there's this myth that just talking it through, yes, talking helps, but at the same time, everyone is not going to see things eye to eye with you, no matter how much talking you do. And if you don't have that ability to adapt and say, okay, so we may not agree on this exactly, but how can we kind of make it, we can make it work?
Yes.
You don't have those skills and ability, and I'm seeing that being a big issue now in the tech age, then that's not a service to your child to pull them out.
Right. There's always going to be interpersonal conflict in friendships, in marriage, in work relationships, in your professional development, and yourself even. And, thinking that by isolating my child, by bringing them home and removing them from every obstacle and every difficulty, that's the best for them. If that is your primary reason, I think you should take a good look at that so that you don't do harm.
Now, I do want to say, especially, we're very unashamed of our faith. We are Christians. But I will say, so for example, if it's just a very secular environment and they're talking about things that they shouldn't be, hearing about nasty sex and all these things that, and you feel like maybe your child is being influenced by them, I think that's a very valid reason to pull them out and send them into homeschooling.
Yes, I do too, and I'm sure most parents are concerned about not just their child hearing different opinions, but being indoctrinated
Amen.
with different ideologies and certainly with cultural norms that would maybe be completely antithetical to the family's belief. And those are valid reasons to consider homeschooling. It is not isolationist, it should not be, but it can be a place of nurturing your child and preparing them to have an answer for their faith, to have a good answer for the way they look at the world and at other people. And again, if you're moving towards something, not just running away from something else, that's a very important principle to consider.
Is difficult subjects.
Yeah.
Not, just because it's something difficult, that's not a valid reason to pull out your child from the school. That, as a teacher, I can tell you these curriculums are put together for a reason. And if you're teaching your child that they can just quit when something is difficult.
That's right. No parent likes to see their child struggle and suffer and cry over, material. But it gets to be an excuse if we say, well, that's just the way I am. I can't understand math. I can't do this. I can't learn this handwriting or this English. And so let's avoid it. That's not good. We're wanting to raise responsible citizens, educated citizens that know how to think for themselves and make good choices based on reason and based on thought, not just on, I don't like it, therefore I need to escape it. And wanting to exit the school setting in order to avoid unpleasant topics or hard, difficult situations would be another reason that maybe you want to rethink your decision.
And this is something I'm adding. If you don't see yourself being able to be with your child 24/7, then I would strongly encourage you to rethink homeschool, because I've seen some people, they try and do it, and I'm just gonna say it's kind of lazy and just, I'm gonna park them in front of a computer and have them, or I'm just gonna have, just a couple hours a day. I'm telling you, as someone that has worked with hundreds of kids, if not thousands at this point, every time I've seen a parent do that, their child is behind. Because it's very easy. You could just have them, do the material, have them take a little quizzy. Oh, they're ready. Go back and ask them the next day how much they remember of that. If they can't do that same test the next day, they didn't learn it. And there's a reason. And by the way, public school days, they're usually between 6 to 8 hours for a reason, because you need to teach the child that they do have to stay focused for a certain length of time. If you teach your child that an hour, 2 hours a day is enough, how is that child going to function in the workplace where they're required to focus for 8 or actually 9 hours, if you include lunch a day?
It's so important to think about the dynamics of the family. If you feel like the only way your child will comply with things you ask them to do is by nagging or yelling or threatening punishment, that's not a good way to live. Nobody wants to live in that kind of environment, that pressured environment. Again, if you're just trying to escape things, if you are wanting an easy way out, homeschooling is not for you. We want to nurture children to give them the best opportunity in life that they can have, and to love them and to support them and encourage them and nurture is the word that keeps coming to mind. You want to provide the foundation where that child can thrive and grow. And if your home is full of stress, if you are at odds and fighting with your child about everything from helping with dishes or taking out trash or making their bed or all those, if everything is a major fight, I think those issues need to be addressed before we pile on responsibility for school on top of that.
Exactly, and you want to make sure, and I really feel like I've seen some people that are able to, but from what I've seen from working with kids, the best performing kids are one where one person is at home full time. I mean, it's going to be very tough if you are working 8 hours a day and then you gotta teach your child. I mean, can you honestly tell yourself you're giving your child your all if you just worked 8 hours a day? When are you gonna sleep? 8 hours a day plus 6 hours of school or 5 hours. When are you gonna cook dinner? When are you gonna sleep? So I think you really need to be in a place where, most of the people I know who do it are stay-at-home moms, and because of the time commitment to it, and that's not trying to disparage anybody. It's just a reality of there's only 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm. Some of those schedules may change depending on the age of your child.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the younger your child, the more hands-on and active and available to them every minute. It's so important, to help them stay focused, to do it together, that it's fun to learn, it's exciting, you can encourage them. The older children you may have to go to some more online schooling just for the expertise.
Or take them to labs during
That's
the day.
right. Yeah. There's
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's really tough if you are not a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, I think.
Yeah. Well, and when they're older, those online school may provide the instruction, but you still have to remember, at the end of the day, you're responsible to make sure that work is done, that their learning is occurring, and like Cameron said, there's only so many hours in the day. Doesn't mean that if you're working, especially with older students, and it depends on the child, the age, the child's academic history, and their view of school and schoolwork. It doesn't mean it can't work, but you may be setting yourself up for a lot of conflict in your home and less than acceptable results that you yourself see in homeschooling if you cannot devote a significant amount of time to it.
Amen. Well, that's going to be it for this video. So if you like us, please make sure to like our video and subscribe. And I just want to say thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.